You've probably had the experience of looking at an old picture of your grandmother from when she was young and thinking, that's Grandma? How could that possibly be her? That looks nothing like her. And yet your family, or perhaps even grandmother herself, insists that's her. And so you continue to stare at the photograph, looking for a trace of anything that reminds you of the grandmother you know or remember. Sometimes you find something that sets you at ease, but other times you can hardly believe that the young woman in this picture is the same woman that you know as Grandma. That's the strange effect that photography can have. It sometimes makes familiar things seem almost alien. But why? Aren't photographs the most precise way we have of representing the world? Don't we trust photographs so much that we use them as proof of everything, from documenting the fact that last night was totally awesome to using them as evidence in a trial? How is it possible, then, that the most precise representational art form makes us shake our head in disbelief and think, that can't be Grandma? Siegfried Kracauer, a 20th century journalist, cultural critic, and film theorist in Germany, wrote about this exact phenomenon in his 1927 essay, Photography. His essay deals with the difference between memory and photographs, and why the two never seem to match up. Memory, Kracauer writes, is full of gaps. We don't remember every single detail of every single moment, but focus instead on the things that are important to us. In this way, memory is subjective, personal, and the meaning of a memory is bound up with us and our history. Photography, on the other hand, has no gaps. For an instant in time, every object in front of the lens is captured and preserved. Even if it is a bit blurry or out of focus, the photograph still presents a continuous visual image, with no blank spots or gaps, so that in comparison to memory, photography seems more comprehensive, more accurate. But because nothing is lost or discarded, nothing in particular stands out, making photographs essentially ambiguous. Only when we add a linguistic, interpretive statement does the photograph begin to take on meaning. Because of this difference in meaning between photography and memory, Kracauer believes that in the photograph, the world presents itself independently from the human perspective. Unlike our memories of the world, which are laden with personal and social meaning, photography seems to present the world as it is. While the effect may be jarring or alienating, there can be no doubt that the photograph allows us to see the world in a whole new way. Walter Benjamin, another important German literary and cultural critic in the 20th century, takes up this very idea in his 1935 essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. In the essay, he proposes that human perception changes over the course of history, and that these changes are made possible by new forms of representation, or new media, and sees film as a powerful agent of change in his society. The film camera, on Benjamin's account, opens up new ways of seeing, and reveals things, both large and small, which we either cannot see with our own eyes, or which we often ignore or gloss over. On the large side of the spectrum, the camera can reveal things like the movement of great masses of people. Since the beginning of film in the late 19th century, with the Lumiere brothers' Workers Leaving a Factory, the movement of large masses of people was one of the most captivating and fascinating subjects to film. Benjamin links the rise of film to the mass social and political movements of his time, and writes that the masses, by seeing themselves in film, come to a new understanding of themselves. Fritz Lang's 1927 film Metropolis is full of examples that illustrate how the camera reveals a new way of seeing the masses. From the slow, plodding, synchronized march of the workers changing shifts, to the crowds of workers celebrating their own acts of destruction, to the sexually charged leer of a crowd during an erotic dance, Metropolis demonstrates how the camera, because it captures everything, reveals what we would rather not see, be it the suffering of workers in their oppression, the gleeful celebration of violence and destruction, or the animalistic fervor of a lustful crowd. But film can also reveal smaller, more subtle things that are usually hidden from the eye. Benjamin uses the concept of the optical unconscious to refer to those tiny visual movements and particularities that we usually discard or ignore as insignificant, but which the camera reveals when it lingers on or magnifies its subject. An excellent example of this comes from Robert Wiene's 1923 film, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. In one scene, the mysterious Dr. Caligari is presenting his somnambulist, Cesare, at a carnival, and the camera cuts to a close-up of Cesare's face as he awakens. Watch how the close-up reveals an intensity of movement that our naked eye might normally miss. Something as simple as a man waking up and opening his eyes becomes full of emotion and tension when the actor's face fills and remains in the frame. Because the camera captures the small twitches and movements of the actor's face, these subtle details become visible to us and can take on importance and meaning. Through a small range of theorists and examples, we've gotten a glimpse of how important photography and film were for German theorists in the early 20th century, in their discussions of memory, perception, and even politics. For Kracauer, the photograph presents us with a view of the world free from human perspective, while for Benjamin, the film camera has the power to make us reflect on society and our senses. Though their thoughts might seem outdated in an age of surround sound, special effects, Photoshop, and YouTube, their writing in an era of silent film can still draw our attention to how the camera allows us to see the world differently.